This is the Blood and Black Rum Podcast.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. I'm Ryan from ColdSwayTation.com, and I'm joined with my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
Doing pretty well. We're back after Easter Resurrection Sunday. We had ham or turkey or whatever you celebrate with. For me, it was steak. Delicious, delightful sirloin grilled up.
The Lord was not hammered to the cross for you to be eating a steak on his day of day, his resurrection. Again,
I don't partake in the religious aspects of the holidays, but isn't it the end of Lent, so you can eat red meat? Isn't that like the thing? Like part of the whole thing with Easter is like, you know, you finally got through not eating chocolate or whatever you gave up.
Yeah, Lent's about, you give something.
But it's also like part of like you got to eat fish on Fridays and stuff like that, right?
That's more Catholic thing.
Yeah. So like now you've made it to Easter, and you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna dig into 6 sirloin steaks.
6, eh?
I missed out on all those Fridays. I got to make up for it. No, yeah, we did have like 6 sirloins because it was me and my parents, my family, and my aunt and uncle. So there was quite a few people. So we needed a fair number of steaks. And right now, steak is extremely expensive too. And
I was about to say, how much that cost you? $470?
Well, we had some steaks in the freezer from when they were on sale. So we had some good deals in there, and then we had to pick up a couple more. And it was like $11 for a large sirloin steak because it's so fucking expensive right now. But yeah, no, had a good time. Hopefully you guys while you're sitting around with your friends and family celebrating Easter, cracking open a few eggs, hopefully you listen to our Critters 2 episode.
Please don't. Skip it.
Had the whole family come around. Guys, you gotta listen to this Blood and Black Rum Podcast Easter special. It's like watching the Rugrats Easter Spectacular episode that they did, but instead of Rugrats, it's Blood and Black Rum Podcast.
Did they do it in Easter? I don't even remember.
They did like actually, it was like a Passover episode, I think. Not Easter, but same idea.
I don't think they did a Passover episode either. They did a Hanukkah episode and a Kwanzaa, but I
thought they did a Passover one too.
Maybe. I can't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. It was one of those. Maybe I'm thinking of the Hanukkah one. But anyway, we're back with a new episode, and we wanted to do this episode. You know, like normally we do bi-weekly. It seems like our schedule has kind of changed again, where we're doing.
Oh, they did do a Rugrats Passover episode.
See, told you. It seems like our schedule has kind of changed. We used to do bi-weekly, and now there's been just so many movies that we wanted to get done and cover, and holidays and all of that we've been doing more of a weekly episode this time. But we wanted to come back and do this episode because Monday on April 18th, the Batman released to HBO Max, and we've been wanting to do that one since it released to theaters. We didn't get to go see it in theaters, and it was something that we really wanted to get on the show, especially since we've done so many other superhero movies, and to kind of wash our hands of the other DC movies in the DCEU. We wanted to cover the Batman, so we thought we'd come back the week that it released on HBO Max and get that out there. So, and not only that, but we're recording this episode on 420 as well. So, toke up, everyone. All right, Martin, are you token?
Doing that CBD?
I'm doing drops actually. I'm putting drops right in my eye.
Oh.
No, it was a joke. Like in the Batman movie. You know, they have the drop heads.
I do slow-mo.
Yeah.
From Dread.
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't do anything because I don't know how I'll react on a podcast. You know, like I might just be sitting here all of a sudden zoning out, and can't really do that on a podcast. I kind of have to lead.
Sure you can. Joe Rogan does it all the time.
Yeah. And that's because his followers literally listen to 3 hours of Joe Rogan grunting. So.
Just like, hey, have you ever done a peyote? And then he just sits and stares for...
I kind of have to lead this show, so I don't know what would happen if I just started zoning out and had you fill the airtime.
probably walk away. So, well, you know.
Never mind. I'm done.
I'd be lost without you.
That's right. I hold it all together.
Let's say Enrique Iglesias' hero would be playing in the background. I can be your hero, baby.
So, neither of us saw the Batman when it first came out. We wanted to, but didn't get a chance to. It would have been fun to see this one in theaters.
It's 7 hours long, so
yeah,
that's probably why.
And bring our catheter with us for the 3 bathroom breaks that we need to take every hour for the movie.
You can go through dialysis while watching this movie.
And that brings me up a good point too. Is like when you go to the movie theater and you get like the large bucket of popcorn that has the free refills, or the soda that has the free refills because you got the extra large big boy cup. That always bothers me because like, yeah, I could get a refill, but am I just gonna like get up and leave this movie right now to just go stand in line and wait for a popcorn refill? I generally am not like that because like even if I leave like during a regular part in a movie that I'm watching at home, like I've got to pause it. I can't like just go take a piss and leave it running.
You might be missing on something.
That's right, like a small dramatic detail that I come back and I'm like, what's happening?
There's gonna be a lot of those in a 7-hour film. Like you're not gonna know like
I missed like a symbolic motif somewhere. And then it comes up again at the end, and I'm like, "What? Why is the camera centering on that? I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is." That actually,
well, this film has like the riddles like screaming at you. So I mean, like there's be hard to miss the nuance.
Well, if you look in the backgrounds of all the shots in the movie, you'll see the riddle marks, the question marks that appear in the Batman video game series. They're spread out all around. You just got to really look for them in the backgrounds.
I even saw some Riddler trophies in the background.
Yeah. Glinting in the distance, saying, "Are you sure you want to spend the time to get all 500 of these?"
Robert Pattinson being like, "Here we go." That'd be great. We should have had that. That would have been a 10 on 10 film, like a 7-hour jaunt of just like Robert Pattinson. Be like, found one. Hey, I found another. Just like kind of like with like the Batman movie. Maybe a Batman movie from '66 with like Adam West running around with like the bomb. But instead of like running around with a bomb, he's just running around with Riddler trophies. Like, I don't know what to do, Alfred. They should have space.
They should have done like a Twitch stream one where he just sits there. Like the Twitch stream is called The Batman, and in this one he's just literally finding all the trophies for a good 6 hours.
The film we deserve.
That's right. All right. Before we get into the Batman, let's take a break and let's talk about the beer that we have on the show today because we do have a nice special one on here. I know that there's at least one listener out there who's not excited about the beer that we have on the show today. But you know what? We don't cater the podcast around him because I think the last time he did a Fidens run for me was like 2 times ago, but he got you one just recently. So that's why we don't cater the show to just anybody. We cater it to consistent Fidens mules.
I was going to say, way to sell the mule out.
Yeah. So on the show today, I got a beer that I thought sounded really interesting, and also I wanted to protect some of my own interests and the cost of this beer to offset it. I decided to do it for the podcast because I wasn't sure that I was actually going to like it. We've done a Beer Tree beer on the show before that was part of their layered series.
We have done more than just a Beer Tree. We've done a bunch of
we've done a bunch of them, but I meant in the layered series we've done one other one previously, and that was
we did the passion fruit dragon fruit one and the blood orange.
Did we do those too? That's not in the layered series, is it? It's not a granola one.
I believe so.
No, I don't think those ones are granola. Those are in the other series that they do, the Virtuosity series.
Oh,
this one is
bad.
the layered series. So
My bad.
We've done a bunch of different ones, but
speaking out of turn now.
in the layered series that Beer Tree does, which is basically granola parfait sours. That's like what the layered boils down to. We did one, and it was like a blueberry granola. Which, if you remember when we did that episode, at the time we were like, wow, this is weird. It's weird, but interesting. So I wanted to continue with that, and I got the newest Beer Tree layered that they just released, which is a mango, coconut, granola, and vanilla fruited parfait sour. That's a mouthful to say, but I thought it sounded interesting. But the reason I had to kind of mitigate me not liking it is because I'm not a big fan of coconut. I don't really like coconut in any particular way. Like I don't like actual coconut. I don't like mounds. I don't like artificial coconut. But if it's in a drink, like if it's in like a pina colada or something like that, I will accept it and I will tolerate it. But it's not something that I will jump at and be like, whoa, coconut. And that's also because I've had a lot of middling beers with coconut in them, to the point where when I see coconut in a beer now, I'm kind of like, it might be good or it might not be good. So I got it for the show because I share two with Martin. And I know that Martin likes coconut or likes mango a lot, and he does appreciate coconut. So I thought it would be an interesting one to do for the show, especially because the combination does sound very odd and different with the granola, and I thought it would be good to talk about. So, with that said, we have it on the show, and I am pleasantly surprised to tell you that I enjoy it. I actually think I enjoy it more than the blueberry one, to be honest with you. It's a very interesting beer, and it literally is layered, and it's a very thick, pulpy beer. It doesn't have a lot of head on it, but it is a very pulpy beer that, you know, it has a great mouthfeel, very creamy mouthfeel because of that granola. And immediately you get a nice mango flavor to it, nice juicy mango. Subtle hint of coconut, which is why I like it, because it doesn't have an immense coconut flavor. And then at the end, you get that nice granola, brown sugar, vanilla flavor to top it off. It's very interesting, not overly cloying. Overall, I'm very, very pleased with the layered. What are your thoughts on it?
I like it a lot. As I take a nice swig from number 2, I like it a lot. It's got a nice, fruity, juicy mango taste. Nice, subtle hint of coconut. You definitely get, like, the vanilla. You definitely taste some of the granola, too. It's an odd combo, but it works really well. It's not one that I would really, kind of put together, because my parfaits are usually boring. I'm just like, give me the vanilla yogurt and some granola, and we'll call it a day. But I think it works really... Yeah, well, because I don't really need to... I mean, I'm already eating something incredibly sweet. I don't need to load it up with, like, even more fruit. Make it, diabetic.
Wow.
But I do like it a lot. I think every Beer Tree that I've ever had, I've enjoyed outside, like, the blood orange one. Virtuosity. This is well done. You don't taste the 7.5 alcohol on it. It's very drinkable. Almost has it has a smoothie quality to it. And you're right, you do get like a pulpiness to it too. I thought at first I was kind of imagining it, like, oh, what's like, kind of like tastes like there's like, feel like there's some pulp in there. But nope, it's there. But I enjoy it a lot. It's definitely a very enjoyable I think calling it a sour is generous because it's so kind of thick, layered, and complex. You don't really get like a traditional sour taste out of it. But I like it a lot. I like what they Beer Tree does when it comes to these types of beers. And I can't wait to try more of them.
Yeah, check it out. They have a few layers now. Like I said, they have that maple brown sugar blueberry granola one. And then they also have cinnamon granola peach blueberry, which sounds pretty good. Strawberry cheesecake, a key lime pie, kiwi mango banana honey. That one I'm not so sure about with the banana and the honey there. And a strawberry blueberry vanilla granola, which, I mean, they all sound very, very strong except for that banana one. So, like the key lime pie one really stands out to me. That's one I want to find at some point. I'm sure that they're all kind of limited, but people recently checked into them, so maybe they're available. I don't know. So we'll be on the lookout for more layers in the future.
Key lime sounds absolutely delightful.
It does. I think the strawberry cheesecake sounds really good too. All right, so on to the Batman, and I got it right this time. I used the article and everything. Is there anything else that you would like to critique about my phrasing of the title before we move on?
No, you actually got it right for once. Wait, you forgot John Carpenter's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and also did I sound enough like Robert Pattinson?
No.
Or should I have been more like Batman?
The Batman.
The Batman. My dad Thomas is kind of a dick.
I did like the fact that the film just opens up with the Batman,
boom, the Batman.
Big bold letters.
Do you like because like a lot of times now with more modern movies, the movie like kind of like what we do on the show is almost like it's a secret when you get into the movie. It's like, where's the title card? And then it's like going on and on. And you're like, well, you know what? It's 15 minutes in. I'm not getting a title card. Then 25 minutes in, you get the title card. And it's like,
you find,
at that point, it's like scarier than the movie. You're like,
it's like when
where'd that title card come from?
You get your title card when Act 2 starts. Like,
yeah. It's like, hopefully you didn't forget what movie you were in. You didn't go to the wrong theater. Here's the movie title. Which, like TV shows are doing that a lot more now, too. 25 minutes into the show, like, we'll play the theme song.
By season 3, it's like, you don't even need, like, what do you need a title card for? You know what you're watching, goddammit.
By season 3, they've dropped the rights to the theme song. So they don't need to play it anymore. They play a truncated version. It's like, we'll play 3 notes of the theme song, and you'll know it. You know what it is now.
So that's how Ryan Bingham made his money for the bridge, then, huh?
Down, down, down. That's the bridge theme song. When you told me that, too, because I watched that show, and I liked that show. The Bridge was a good show. When you told me that Ryan Bingham did the theme song, I'm like, the theme song? It has 3 notes. It's a 3-note theme. It literally is like 5 seconds long.
Yeah, the actual song is 25 minutes long.
Yeah. They're like, Ryan, we pay for quality, not quantity.
It's actually just, it's just the weary kind again, like, from Crazy Heart.
Yeah.
Now he's making all his money on, like, being, like, a supporting actor on Yellowstone.
Yeah. Is he really?
Apparently. I've never seen it. I know
my dad watches it. I'll have to ask him. Do you know the guy Ryan Bingham on Yellowstone? He won't, but...
Apparently it's like the conservative show of choice these days, because Kevin Costner is just a douchebag.
Yeah. I mean, he would know the guy because this is a man who thinks a one-man, one-act play has too many characters in it. So he wouldn't know. He had no idea. Like, I don't know. The bearded guy, the mustache guy. I don't know. Just too many people.
Ryan's. your dad's review of Glass Menagerie on
Yeah.
on Broadway. Yeah, I thought it was a little too long-winded. A little too many characters.
Yeah, too many characters. Yeah.
Couldn't keep up with what was going on. Dad, there's 3 characters in it. Yay!
Yeah.
Too many.
All right, so the Batman. Yeah, so I like you brought up the beginning. I did want to talk about the beginning in the beginning, which makes sense for a podcast. You know, start at the beginning. What did you think about the beginning of the movie that kind of like sets up the Batman that we know about and kind of puts the Batman into, obviously from the beginning we know that it's sort of like a fledgling thing that's been going on. It's not like the Batman has been working in Gotham for 20 years now. It's pretty clear that when this movie's starting that the Batman is not like, a veteran at this point.
I like that. I think. My neck just cracked. I honestly think. Oh, sorry for being loud there. I think like they're kind of going like the year 1 route, which I think would have been a great idea. Like to see like an inexperienced Batman, and like the trials and tribulations that an inexperienced Batman goes through, which we kind of get here. He's 2 years on the job. 2 years plus, but I really do like the fact that it opens up with like the mayor in his little election headquarters watching the news, and you see the Riddler kind of stalking him, and then you see the Riddler sneak up behind him and hit him very brutally.
It's a great moment because it has like a very serial killer horror movie 7 vibe to it of him just standing there in the living room, and then all of a sudden there's like a flash and you see the Riddler just there behind him, just standing there.
Which sets the tone for this film that it's going to be like almost, like noir horror, which the film, basically is. I mean, it does borrow from like a lot of different, classic, modern day classic Batman stories. But like to me, like the biggest like influence I could see, is like 7. Like there's a lot of beats from this that come from 7, which is a film I would like us to do because I think that's definitely one that as we get further from when it came out, it's kind of like fallen from like the popular zeitgeist. That being said, I really do like the setup. I like, the fact that it's got that, horror element to it. It makes it, that more engaging. And then the pacing that we get from that, kind of fits to what we're going on. So we get like a nice crime, noir, horror film.
Yeah, I really like that opening. And not even just with the mayor, but the opening itself where, Batman is kind of giving his monologue about crime in the city, and we're seeing like 3 different crimes happening basically at the same time, which again set on Halloween. That is like right there and then you've roped me in. Like fuck it, this Batman movie isn't set on Halloween for the first part of this movie. I'm in.
All you were missing was him smoking a cigarette and like the LA Noir theme playing in the background. Like this city.
Yeah,
the city's been on the beat for 2 years, and the city just keeps getting worse and worse.
But I think
crime's bad.
That opening is really a draw for me because, again, like I said, it's kind of it sets the tone that Batman is not like a veteran at this point. It's not like he's been just working forever. There's still that element of it's sort of new, but criminals are starting to figure this out, and now that they have the bat signal, there's the impact that it has that. Even if Batman is not there is the tendency for the criminal element to think like, well, maybe he is here. Maybe he's lurking in the shadows. So there's like a secondary effect from him just having the presence in the city. And it's fear, obviously, fear that they're going to get taken out. And I like that a lot. And at the same time, he in this movie, he literally is there. Which
missed sorry to interrupt. Missed opportunity if you're going like the whole like vengeance and fear route. You probably should use Scarecrow. If that's going to be.
You could have, yeah.
motif in the film. I'm not complaining, but you know,
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was interesting. You know, like, even though he may not be lurking, he is in the presence of their thoughts, and I thought that was a really interesting take on Batman that we don't see a whole lot.
Well, that I say that does pair with the line when before we got into our little group chat. I had like playing in the background from Batman Beyond, like, what are cowards? A superstitious, cowardly lot. Mm-hmm. And that's something that, you know, they say all the time in the Timverse. Like, you know, like when you watch the Justice League episode where they go to like the future, meet up with Static Shock and shit. When like old Batman's like asking new Batman, he's like, "Are criminals still a superstitious, cowardly lot?" And he's like, "Yup." And then, like, you know, goes and finds some criminals and interrogates them. Mm-hmm. But, like, you know, so I mean, like, that is nice, because like a nice little homage to that, like, idea that, you know, in this world, criminals are a superstitious and cowardly lot.
And I think you said it well, that this movie does have that noir element, and it does have a horror element, and it kind of interplays with both of those. It's very obvious that Matt Reeves, in his direction, is influenced by a lot of different elements of Batman. It's clear that he knows the comics fairly well. He in all the iterations of those comics, but it is very clear that he's influenced by certain ideas from those elements. He's definitely influenced by, like what you said before we got on the show, the Long Halloween. That's a big one, especially like just even the setting alone on in this movie being set on Halloween and then just after is definitely, you know, similar to the Long Halloween. He does take a lot from Scott Snyder's recent Batman comics run, which was a lot more serious and somewhat horror-like. He does pull from the noir elements of the Timverse because the Batman animated series was incredibly noir-like. Where at times where it kind of eschewed some of like the more modern approaches of like the Batman comics to go in a more like kind of antiquated like 50s route in some cases, like the car designs and things like that.
Art Deco.
Yep. It pulls from
Hush, as I say, pulls from Hush.
Mm-hmm. It pulls a lot from David Fincher in his films and Seven.
Arkham pulls from the Arkham games too.
It does, yeah. It's kind of interesting how much it can pull from. To be honest with you, and stick within its same themes.
Which is good, because you'd think, like, at this point, when you sign on for like a DC or Marvel project, you have access to the fucking like libraries. Mm-hmm. If you're not like, before you sit down, like you have an idea and you're not like scoping through the thousands upon thousands of pages like of canon to go through, then what the fuck are you doing?
Agreed. But I think that it's not situated in the campiness that has come to define the Zack Snyder version of Batman, because
I wouldn't say Zack Snyder's universe is campy. It's just bad.
I would say it's campy unintentionally. And I think like there's a lot of talk about how Zack Snyder brings like a miserable darkness, dirge to Batman, but even so, like I don't tend to see it that way, because though Zack Snyder treats Batman like he's miserable, the film itself it can sometimes be like just overwhelmingly cheesy instead of like dark. It's more like, you know, a 13-year-old going through a dark phase of, you know, like, you know, yeah, they're sort of like depressed, but it's not like real depressed. It's like their emotional response to puberty or something like that. That's kind of how I see Zack Snyder's movies. They're not super. They're still very fluffy.
I think part of the problem is because Zack Snyder, especially when it comes to like DC, mainly pulls inspiration from the fucking Dark Knight Returns. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, you know, a dearth of intelligent darkness. Mm-hmm. Like the Dark Knight Returns, in hindsight, is not that great of a piece of work, if you ask me, at least. But But it's just that overall, like, yeah, Batman's what makes Batman, impactful. He's dark, he's tormented, and he's gonna kill people. He's got guns. I like guns.
I mean,
and not only that, he didn't have a film to fuck up with Batman. When you think about it, because in hindsight, they didn't do Batman film. Batman v Superman isn't even a Batman film, or a Superman film. It's just a clusterfuck, and then Justice League is fucking Justice League.
Right. They didn't even have to deal with any of like the baggage of Batman himself, because that kind of, it's when you're dealing with like the two fighting each other, there's a lot other stuff to deal with besides that. So I think the Batman, it does draw from a lot of different influences, but it still sticks to its one main theme and mood. And that mood is very moody, and it's very grim. For a PG-13 movie, this movie does hit a lot of elements to it that is very similar to like the R-rated 7, as you said.
Is it PG-13?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a time we live in.
Right. It doesn't really seem like it should be because it has, the Riddler has its, Saw-like, 7-like trap serial killings. Has some very brutal on-screen murder. And very early on, too, there's an F-bomb dropped, which I thought was surprising, which made me, kind of question, like, oh, is this really PG-13? How many are they going to drop here? And that is truly the only one. And in true MPAA fashion, you're getting an R rating if you go over one F-bomb. That's it, man. One and done.
What a time we live in.
And it can't have any sexual connotations or else you're immediate R.
Oh, you're saying it to like the response of killing somebody? PG-13. You want to fuck? You want to fuck? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I know.
No.
Yeah. Titanic gets a tasteful nudity scene, and it's still PG-13.
Oh, really? I thought it was R.
No.
Jesus Christ. It's just got to be the right director.
Yeah.
Yeah, Steven, we got to give your film we're going to have to give your film an R because you had someone's head explode in Temple of Doom. No, you're not.
Well, here's how the times have changed, too. We didn't even mention in Critters 2 that Critters 2 is a PG-13 movie. And it has the Kernahan cannons, as we mentioned on the last episode. Just out-and-out Kernahan cannons.
Wouldn't it have been something if it was a canned film?
Yeah, right. But anyway, okay. So, back to the Batman. So, there's a lot going on in the Batman, and that's part of the reason why it's 3 hours long. But the overall crux of the movie is that it's about 2 years into Bruce Wayne taking on the mantle of the Batman. He's kind of experimenting with this as being like an approach to trying to stop crime in Gotham, which is kind of run rampant. And at this point, he hasn't really met any of the cabal of villains that we've come to know from the Batman series. He's still like kind of in process of just taking down like small time crime and stuff like that. And so we're kind of meeting him as he's figuring out this path to being Batman. And clearly he doesn't really have it figured out that well. For the most part, he is just taking down like small crimes, small violent crimes, things like that. But then he's coming into this murder of the mayor and dealing with that with the police. And as we know, the police don't really like Batman because he's something of a vigilante operating outside of the bounds of the police department. And the only one that really puts up with that is Lieutenant Gordon.
Let me just say for one thing, two things actually. One, man, 1970s New York City has never changed. With like the downtrodden, like crime is everywhere and we gotta be vigilant. And two, especially regarding like today's world and like the political leanings of people today, do you really think most people would fucking like be up in arms about a vigilante? No, it'd be like Death Wish. They'd all be like, yeah, rooting on for Bronson, like kill those fuckers,
Yeah.
So, like, when you have, like, films like this and you're like, I can't believe there's a vigilante going around, they'd be like, good! Beat the shit out of him! I can't. Cops can't. Go beat the shit out of him.
Well, actually,
so, like,
they don't really focus too much on, like, the public's perception of Batman, right?
No, but I mean, like the cops. Do you think the cops too would be like, yeah, go, like, listen,
Well,
now,
Well, interestingly, too, this movie is all about how far corruption runs in Gotham, right? Like, because every major element of the city, from the mayor to the DA to the judges, are all in on the corruption that's inherent here, being led by mob bosses, particularly Carmine Falcone, or Falcone, however you like to say it.
Yeah, I say Jesus Christ. Butcher it 4 different ways, why don't you? Carmine Falcone.
Well, not in this movie. He's Falcone.
It's Falcone.
I know that. Well, you know what? It's dependent on who's putting on the show or who's doing the comic. But in this case, it's Carmine Falcone. They do not have the E at the end here. But
actually, I believe it's Falcone.
Yeah,
Falcone.
Just really accentuated. Carmine Falcone.
What would you like? Pasta fufu.
Played by John Turturro. And I do have to say that I am quickly becoming an
old man?
No. Well, that too, yeah. No, but I am becoming a Turturro fanboy because I recently watched the 2016 TV series The Night Of, which he is in, and he plays the main attorney in that show. And have quickly come around to him being a great actor. And
Turturro's always been great.
No, I mean he always has, but just recently I've really been enmeshed in like Turturro things that he's been doing. So I think he did great in The Night Of. It's great here as Carmine Falcone, with like nice like upkept but menacing manner to him. But what I was saying about like you would think with all the corruption running rampant, especially like on the police force, they'd be like, yeah, vigilante, who cares? He's not operating in the bounds of the police force, but neither am I. So, whatever. But no, they're all uppity about it. But anyway, like I guess this film has a lot going on because it has that whole element of the Falcone regime and the past case against Thomas Wayne and what he did in the past, and that all kind of comes together in this one big search for who is the rat in the case against Salvatore. What was it? Maroney.
Yeah, Maroney.
Maroney. And that involves like lots of different players. It involves the Waynes, which in the Batman doesn't really focus too much on the whole Wayne murders, but it is a fairly large part of the motivation behind the Batman in this movie. Which, as I was telling you, I think is very, very overdone. Like the element of seeing Bruce Wayne in that, in Crime Alley, seeing his parents murdered has happened so many times. And even very recent comics of the Batman. And I think that I like the fact that the film doesn't really focus on that moment. It doesn't like actually show you that happening. It doesn't like make it into a whole big thing.
When we get the director's cut, we will get that.
Yeah. It doesn't make it a whole big thing, and I like that. I would be fine with a Batman movie just not even dealing with that. Just, completely skipping over the whole element of his parents' death.
Well, I think when it comes to that, I mean, like, treat it like it's a trope that's like on Stairway to Heaven level, like for like rock music, and like when you had like Wayne's World when he starts playing Stairway to Heaven, like, nope, don't do it. Like at this point, Batman is such well trodden ground. You don't need to put in like, well, his parents, the tragedy of Thomas and Martha Wayne. Everyone knows. And if you don't, you'll have somebody there be like, hey, what do they, when they mention like Thomas and Martha Wayne in passing, what does that mean? Oh, this is what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
Escape yourself from it. We get it. We understand that's the cause of his trauma. At this point, because you fucking do a new film every 3 years and reboot it every 6 years, we don't need to see that over and over again. Just like, we get it. We understand that's his trauma. Then explain like how that impacts this iteration of this character.
It's like the same thing with Spider-Man and Uncle Ben. We don't need like the Uncle Ben.
How dare you?
Death over and over again.
How fucking dare you? Marissa Tomei is barely in the ground and dead, and you're out here saying we don't need that for her.
No, that
anymore.
was fine because that was alternate. We don't need, Uncle Ben and his wild rice again. Dying on the side of the road.
Wild rice sounds delightful right now. But no, I agree. Like that's a horse that's been beaten to death and worked to death. And I think it would have been better, like, not even really to bring that part of his life up. I mean, they don't do it that often, but I mean, like, we don't need to have that talked about all the time. We get it. That's his trauma. That's what's made him focus on becoming the Batman.
I mean, I'm okay with it in the Batman because I think that they don't bring it up too much. They, like I said, they don't like have a whole scene, Martha's pearls in the street, stuff like that.
Well, they even did that well, and that was the opening to Batman v Superman, and it's actually really well done. But again, especially when at that point Batman's like fucking 40 years old, we don't need to see that happening,
right?
And I mean, here, I mean, it's not like a terrible flaw, but at the same time, it's like you don't need to hear Alfred talk about, well, your parents were shot in Crime Alley.
Yeah, but I was saying I will allow it because it does. It's not like it's the main crux of this movie. It's part of it, and it does definitely drive the whole vengeance element of Batman in this movie, because of the revelation of Thomas Wayne hiring Carmine Falcone to kill a reporter for him. That is definitely part of it, and it drives Batman to kind of see his parents in a different light. But I would have rather they don't even cover it at all because I don't know that it's really necessary to this movie. There's so much else going on with it. The Riddler being the main villain in this movie does offer up a lot of other riddles that don't even really need the Wayne element to it. Because there's lots of other things going on. There's Selena Kyle who gets roped into this because she's Carmine Falcone's daughter, who he doesn't even know. There's a bunch of corruption in Gotham that it goes through beforehand, and I don't know that we need the Thomas Wayne element to really solidify that and bring it back to Batman and Bruce Wayne, because it seems like even without that, the Riddler knows who Batman is. He's targeting him not because of the Waynes, but because he understands that the drive that Batman has is very similar to his own and kind of equates them in some ways, that they're both looking for vengeance against a city that is full of corruption. And the Riddler is sort of like that incel guy that goes online and gets a huge following and then, commits a crime. What this movie really plays up is the fact that, he's using social media to become somewhat of a cult leader for these people in Gotham that are underrepresented and sick of the corruption, and
he's Batman's QAnon.
Yeah, basically. Maybe a little bit on the nose for this movie at this time, but I will allow it because it's a small portion of the movie, and I think Paul Dano does a pretty good job as the Riddler of being both threatening when he's in his Slipknot mask, but also, particularly confrontational when he's out of it as himself. which I kind of like because I like the fact that the film doesn't need like a ridiculous supernatural villain to be the driving force like any of the DC movies have had. You know, that's got to be set in like CGI land with, you know, lightning and thunderstorms and tunnel clouds and floating through the air and shit like that. Particles raining down because it's a supernatural godlike figure. This movie is really well grounded in being like a regular person, a regular, you know, killer. And I think that's really where the Batman needed to go. Let, you know, the other people in the DC franchises deal with mystical stuff. Let Superman deal with aliens and mystical beings, and let Wonder Woman deal with that shit. Let the Batman deal with what he's good at, which is detective work and regular human beings who he can take down. So I guess let's you know, like, we can jump to the ending here at this point and talk about how do you feel the film does with bringing the vengeance element of Batman / Bruce Wayne to the forefront, and what the Riddler does to kind of bring all the corruption into the light, and how he feels about his work with the Batman. What did you think about that?
I like that, like, you know, after all the riddles and the things that, you know, as, you know, it's a nice cat and mouse game. But at the end, you find out that, you know, after they catch the Riddler, and he still has like a final trick up his sleeve onto what he's planning, that as he's talking to Batman, he's basically saying how that, you know, he couldn't have done this without him. It's him, you know, putting everything out into the light, doing the legwork, being the muscle that got him to what he, you know, wanted to achieve. If it weren't for Batman, you know, tracking him down, none of this would have happened. I like that a lot, you know, which, you know, puts some of the responsibility on, you know, which is a tried and true adage, you know, from Batman, of like whether or not his vigilantism is helping or hurting more. You know, it's I think a nice look at it here, because, you know, through these acts that he's been committing, he's been basically aiding in the Riddler trying to achieve what he's been wanting to achieve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that too. I like that the Riddler is really equating them together. And, you know, he keeps saying we, and Batman's like, there is no we. But it really does come down to Batman following the riddles and doing exactly what the Riddler wanted, and also being motivated by much of the same things. I like that a lot. I think that's a really powerful theme for this movie. And one of the main things that I really like about this movie, for how dark it is, how much it puts its characters through, like Alfred being, you know, basically blown up. What I like about the end of the movie is that Batman doesn't really succeed. He succeeds in cleaning up the mess after the fact. He succeeds in understanding the Riddler's plan after it's already set in motion. But he doesn't really succeed at figuring out what the Riddler's doing. And I like that, because a lot of times in Batman comics and movies, you know, it's expected. Batman is going to figure it out at some point, and he's not going to let people die on his watch.
You get let's say you get the Lupin, like at the end of every Lupin episode or movie, like, how'd you figure it out, Lupin? Well, I knew all along, because, you know, this, and this, mm-hmm. and I was, you know, always one step ahead. And here, you know, you don't have that,
right? Because
that's also one of the great parts too of that interaction between the Riddler and Batman, when he's like, oh, and wait for, you know, you're just not gonna be able to wait for the final stroke. And he's like, what do you mean? He's like, oh, you didn't figure it out? And he has to go back and, you know, take another look at the riddle to find out, like, what the Riddler was actually planning at the end. And by the time he figures it out, it's too late.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, that also makes sense with it being like the second year of Batman doing this. You know, he's obviously not going to be an expert detective at this point, as we've come to know Batman to be. And obviously Robert Pattinson being younger Bruce Wayne in this movie, there's still a lot of things that he's not experienced in. You know, he's still good at the riddles. He's still a fairly smart guy, and he still has a lot of income and science at his disposal. But he's not perfect, and I like that this movie draws attention to that he's not perfect, and he did not figure this one out. Batman can't succeed every single time, and it's very detrimental to Gotham because the Riddler ends up blowing up all of the seawalls and basically drowning a bunch of people in Gotham as the water rushes in, as a pretty big fuck up on Batman's part. I like that. I like that a lot. I think that's a really interesting idea. To have him fail, especially in his first movie, and then figure out how to be better. Not only that too, but the movie kind of brings together that idea of like individualism is not as powerful as like a group, a cult of people that are all motivated by the same ideas. Basically becoming other Riddlers that he's kind of assembled. I think that's the movie does a lot of those things very well, and I really appreciated what it did at the end to kind of give us a little bit of a step back and say, you know what, Batman's not perfect. He's not immortal. He's just a man who's trying to figure some shit out in Gotham, especially being inexperienced. What do you think about the Catwoman stuff that's kind of looped in here?
I think it's pretty good. I think Zoe Kravitz does a really good job as Selena Kyle. I do think though overall it's one of the more unnecessary parts of this film. Her inclusion, I think, if they left it at like her being used to like get into like the iceberg lounge like the first time, with him like using like like which was really cool, like the contact lens that tracks everything. That whole part's good, but like then like after that, a lot of her like parts kind of seem ancillary, and like the whole fact that she's actually Falcone's illegitimate daughter, and she's got this score to settle. I understand why it's there. But I think if you were ever to complain about like what's technically an unnecessary part of the film, I would say that like her arc is, because I think I'm not saying at the 3 hours that it is that it's not well paced. I actually think it is pretty damn well paced and engaging. But I think if you're gonna make it that long, I think if they spent more time like being with the first film, that's refocusing on what this Batman's gonna be, the time would have been better spent with Batman and Bruce Wayne and getting to know more about them and who they are. But I do think Zoe Kravitz does a pretty good job as Selena Kyle, and I did like all the parts where she was in, helping Batman spy in like the iceberg lounge in Under 44.
Yeah, I think she does a really good job as well. I think for the most part the Catwoman stuff is done fairly tastefully. To have him, Batman meet Catwoman, have her be sort of like she's not technically a villain. She's somewhat of an antagonist, and she has different motivations than Batman, especially when it comes to like killing people. But she does, still, have an influence on Batman. I like all of that. I think that's pretty well done. I think you're right though that she does seem like very ancillary later on in the movie. It really just kind of gets us to the end of the movie where she kind of comments on the fact that Batman is already with someone and Batman is with Gotham. And there's really nothing else that, there's nothing that can come between Batman and Gotham. That's kind of just what his life is going to be. So I think they used that for that. And, I thought that was pretty good. But you're right. I think, Catwoman here is sort of set up for stuff later on, like in sequels, not necessarily as much to do in this movie. But what I did find interesting about like having these characters that Batman doesn't really know, like the Penguin, played by Colin Farrell in a great transformation of Colin Farrell.
Took me a long time to realize that was Colin
Farrell.
Farrell.
Like you can kind of see it in the face that he's that it's Colin Farrell, but it definitely is a transformation. But what I like about that is that we're getting to see these characters for the first time, but it's not like for every one of them we're not getting like a super in-depth origin story for them like we might get in a movie that's kind of devoted to that villain. We don't have to see it from scratch, like, oh, here's the reason why the Penguin is the way he is, and here's the reason why the Joker is the way he is. The Riddler actually doesn't even really get that amount of development. It's more like exposition, that they're kind of like, oh yeah, he was in the orphanage and his past was fucked up, but it doesn't really give too much depth to why he does the things that he does, which I don't really think that we need that all the time for a villain. We don't need the exact reason why they are doing what they're doing, as long as the motivation at the time makes sense. So I like that a lot, of meeting the characters again for the first time. Let's see. Speaking of, you had said the 3-hour runtime. I think that it's pretty much like, normally on the show we talk about how the film could have been cut down, but I really did not feel like the Batman did not need to be 3 hours. I felt like it pretty much used the whole runtime to its advantage to get things across. I don't really think that any of it was truly wasted time or filler time. I think that it pretty much used it appropriately, and I didn't expect myself to say that coming into the movie, because hearing about a 3-hour Batman movie, it's kind of, you're like, that's excessive. It's not necessary. But I did end up feeling like all of it was truly necessary for the film.
I agree. Excuse me. Sorry. I agree. Like the fact that it kind of like leaned into that noir style and had like a methodical pace, but it knew where it was going and it kept you engaged for most of the film. It definitely does not feel like 3 hours long. It's definitely engaging. Like I said though, like one of the things I think they could have done a better job with, and this is just me screenwriting, is that, like, if they spent more of that time getting to know Bruce Wayne as a person, because a lot of the film is dedicated to Batman and what he's doing, which I get because the film is called The Batman, and the main crux of the point of the film is that Bruce Wayne is the Batman. However, we don't really know Bruce Wayne, so like that kind of like, oh, you've always been the Batman ever since then, kind of falls flat, because all we see in, I think, one of the incredibly weaker points of the film is anytime we see Bruce Wayne and Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, he's just a pout and emo with some fucking eyeliner on, like he just got back from a Cure concert.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been nice to see, like, a more fleshed out Bruce Wayne. I'm not saying he had to be like exactly like the Timverse where you have like, Bruce Wayne and Batman and like who is who. Is he more Bruce Wayne? Is he more Batman? Is he a mix? Is one of them like an identity for him? But here, like, if we're going with the idea like he's the Batman, show more of like Bruce Wayne as the facade, or at least how we're going to get there. Because we don't really see that in this film. Like we have very fleeting moments of Bruce Wayne with Alfred, and they're not really like meaningful in any way, which is kind of like a wasteful point. Because I think Andy Serkis does a good job as Alfred, but I don't think like you get enough of that to like feel any connection for the two.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think what it boils down to, not showing Bruce Wayne as much about Bruce Wayne, is that, he really has, the film tries to show that he really has kind of like receded into this experiment that he's been doing in Gotham of being Batman. And it all drives the fact that he's doing this for vengeance. It's not really for anything else. It's not really as much to clean up Gotham as it is his own act of vengeance about his past. And I think that was intended to come out for the end when the Riddler kind of equates them to each other. Though I can see what you're saying, that you don't really get a sense of who Bruce Wayne is in this movie, besides the fact that he's devoted his time to being Batman. We kind of get glimpses of that. We kind of get told what he's been doing, not going to like various functions and things and skipping out on those things. And also not like doing charity work and stuff like we tend to know Batman and Bruce Wayne as doing, basically giving back to Gotham. But we don't really get to see a whole lot of that because Robert Pattinson, for about probably 80% of the movie, is Batman. That's it. There is no other Bruce Wayne persona. So I think, like, I understand, that's what they wanted to do, to show that he's driven by vengeance and has basically become Batman for this reason. But I do think that it would have been useful to see a little bit of Bruce Wayne as well, being Bruce Wayne.
Well, and again, like as I said before we even started the podcast, the reason I make that argument is because at the end you find that, again, Riddler knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman and that he's connected to all of this. I think to make that impactful, you have to know more about Bruce as a person. Because the whole idea of, like, my identity is going to be found out, that whole mystique is, you don't really give a shit about, and you don't care that Riddler knows, or there's no reason for Riddler to even know that if you don't know about Bruce the man.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going with the fact that he's just the Batman, you could have had, like, the Riddler, because again, he doesn't win at the end anyway. He doesn't end up technically winning at the end. So you could have had the fact that he knows Batman as a vigilante and that he might side with him because he's looking for vengeance and justice, and that he knows the Waynes are founding members of Gotham and corrupt as everyone else. You didn't have to have him make the connection, because now, like, okay, is he going to be like Hugo Strange, like just like kind of like constantly lingering over him, like, I know who Batman is? Everyone would be like, yeah, okay, shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I kind of like come at it with, like, and I think also too, because Robert Pattinson does such a good job as Batman, I think it would have been nice to see him be more of an actual show what who he is as Bruce Wayne is.
Mm-hmm.
Because even like in the Nolan films, we get to see throughout, the charade that Bale puts on as being Bruce Wayne. And the same thing with like Keaton as Batman, the charade he puts on of being Bruce Wayne.
So what did you think of the soundtrack in this movie?
Oh, how'd you like the Ave Maria, like making the Riddler into Professor Pig for a little bit?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the whole soundtrack really uses the classical score within its own, rendition of those songs. I don't really mind the Ave Maria part of that. But you're right, like it does kind of cross over into other villain territory.
I'm not complaining about it, because the Riddler is like an amalgamation of like Pig and Professor Pig, Hush, Riddler, and little elements of like Nolan's Bane. I'm fine with it, but it's just kind of funny, like when you had that, because it's like, oh, you know what the Riddler's not known for? Playing opera music as he like murders people.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think the soundtrack was pretty good. Especially seeing as I think one of the weaker parts of the Nolan verse is Hans Zimmer's score, because it's just really generic. It does have like that nice classical feel. I do think the couple of times where they played like the random like emo song like that we get at the end is kind of weird. Like like gotta save Gotham, gotta save
the Nirvana, Something in the Way.
Yeah, is that what that was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I actually like that. I think it brings a nice, I'm not always a huge fan of like the remix renditions of like classic rock songs that they bring to, various superhero films. But in this case, I am going to allow it. I think that it worked well, and I think it does fit in well with like the very ominous, grim score, especially that's kind of revolved. Props because the soundtrack utilizes the timpani player more than the Halloween 2 soundtrack. This is the most work that the timpani player has seen in a long time. So I did appreciate the fact that the film incorporates a lot of timpani and a lot of very ominous orchestral score that is reminiscent of the Batman themes that we think of, like the Tim versus, but also kind of, doesn't use that approach. It's a little bit different, especially like very, very like plotting and intense. I really enjoyed the soundtrack itself. Thought it was a very, very good addition to this movie to give it even more tenseness.
Would have been nice if Shirley Walker was still with us to bring us the Tim verse score for the film.
Yeah.
So what overall, like when it comes to like say like the Riddler, like what do you think of like his blend of inspirations? Because it's not like the classic Riddler that we know, and that you do see him borrowing ideas from other supervillains in Batman's Rogues Gallery. Like how'd you feel about that?
Well, this Riddler definitely has shades of the Joker in it. It definitely has shades of Professor Pig. I do enjoy the fact, too, just to say that the Riddler design in this movie is not very standard Riddler attire. Like the very over-the-top, flamboyant, like Riddler in a top hat, question mark suit and cane. I think would have just been like absolutely ridiculous looking in this movie. So I did appreciate the change up in costume here. And the fact that, like, actually, too, in the newer Batman comics, I think the Riddler has kind of gone through a sort of, like, steroidal abuse period where he's become, like, absolutely ripped to shit. And that's not particularly, like, the Riddler of yore. So I did appreciate, too, that this one, they didn't really go that route and just be like, oh, yeah, the Riddler's just been, nonstop repping in his overlook when he's in the apartment, just kind of like staring out the window. He's not just doing pull-ups the whole time. So I appreciate that. But I would definitely say shades of Professor Pig, shades of the Joker. Probably those two. Who were you thinking?
I'd say Hush as well.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because he's kind of like the bag kind of like over his head kind of serves as like the bandages over like Hush's face, and the fact that he knows who Bruce Wayne is and about the Wayne family. It's definitely pulling from that. I like it. I think it serves well as an amalgamation because it's like probably the closest we will ever get to like a Hush film. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, Hush is a really cool villain that we don't really see crop up that much. Kind of gets left off most of the Rogues Gallery that they kind of go through. Most of the time, in the new comics and things like that, all the arcs that they do with new authors, they kind of go through the same ones like over and over again. It's like, you get the Riddler, the Joker, Scarecrow comes up quite a bit, Bane. Those have been like the main ones that you see kind of consistently like recycling through the main comic series. Like they don't tend to go too much further off into like the Rogues Gallery at this point. So it was nice to see that. They kind of went a different route with the Riddler.
Which makes it like disappointing the fact that they shoehorned in the Joker at the end of the film.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't need that. I think this, would have been I hope they probably won't because it's gonna make too much money. But I think the franchise would have been better not even bringing up the Joker, just because it's been done to death. And I think the fact too, like, it's not a bad thing because the film does have a lot of very Nolan-esque aspects in it, like the whole the way Gotham looks, the dreariness, the corruption that's ever rampant, people, being upset at the corruption. It has, like, the film has a lot of beats from the Nolan films, which is, again, understandable because they're very impactful in how they, like, set up comic book films for the past 20 years now, basically. But I think, like, the fact, like, I think the film would be better off, like, kind of trying to do something different. Like, we don't need to see the Joker. Because, again, like I said, like, if they're, like, with the whole, like, the whole, like, I am vengeance and focusing on, like, the idea of fear. Scarecrow would have been great as a villain. Oh, wait, Batman Begins did that. So let's stay away from it. Riddler's a great substitute. Dark Knight does the Joker. Let's probably try to do something different. Let's do something, like, it's probably not, like, it's not set in stone, but I guarantee, like, the next one is probably going to have the Joker in there somewhere. Would have been better off probably doing something different. Mm-hmm. Just because it's, again, well-trodden ground. Do something different. Zaz, Calendar Man, Mad Hatter, something. Penguin. Colin Farrell in this as Penguin is great. He's, like, such a, like, smarmy asshole. And, like, the whole car chase scene is awesome. Just, like, and then watching him, like, as he thinks he got away from, Batman, and he's, like, celebrating. And then you see, like, here comes fucking Batman through the pyres because justice never stops. It's great. But Hollywood, DC's got to make, Warner Bros. Has to make that money, so we're probably going to get the Joker sometime eventually, but I think it would be cool, as I talked about before, if they, like, just kept going the more grounded route, like, because this works so well. I could watch a whole bunch of these films, like, with this kind of, like, style, like, more detective noir base, where he's, like, trying to track down, like, a serial killer in Gotham who's stirring shit up. So, I mean, the Joker does fit that role, but again, you beat it to death.
Yeah. All right.
How do you think about what do you think about Jeffrey Wright as James Gordon?
I think he does a really good job.
We're big Jeffrey Wright fans here.
Yeah, I think he does a great job. Still rocking a nice mustache.
Beautiful mustache.
Yep. I thought he did a really good job. I really liked him as Gordon. Not much more to say. I think he just did a great job.
I like the fact that he whispers every line.
Mm-hmm.
The
one thing that I didn't enjoy about the script, though, and it's not it tends to be Gordon, but it's sometimes other characters, is when there's something happening on screen that's super obvious, like when they're looking at the laptop. And there's, like, something on screen, like, it like zooms into, like, a map, and he's like, that's a map of Gotham. It's like, yeah, no shit. And that's just like
that's why he's a lieutenant.
It's just like
captain.
It tends to be Gordon because he's, like, kind of the onlooker to Batman's detective work, but it can be other characters. But that was one thing about the writing that I did think, like, there was unnecessary jabber about things that are very clear to the audience, and Batman looking at it is like, that's a map of Gotham. It's like literally the words Gotham is on the map. It's like,
Wouldn't you love Gotham? Wouldn't you love if he, like, turned and looked at him like, no shit, Jim?
Yeah, right.
Just like no shit.
Yeah, that was one thing that did annoy me, is, like, just, like, the very obvious dialogue that would point out things that we know. But other than that, I thought he did a great job as Gordon.
Paul Dano is also great as the Riddler.
Mm-hmm.
Channeling those great There Will Be Blood vibes as Eli.
Mm-hmm. I thought he did a good job.
Love it. Perfect choice. There's
just, like, a chilling understatement about him.
Which he's very good at. And getting to watch him like freak out later as like his plans kind of starting to like fall apart. Great, he does a great job, and I hope he shows up in the rest of the films. I just hope they don't do what they did with Scarecrow in the Nolan films and kind of bastardize after the first film. Like, all right, yeah, you show up and kind of like a weirdo off to the side.
Yep.
But yeah, that was a great choice. Did you like all the like the Zodiac killer like things that they kind of like poked in there?
Yeah, I liked all the serial killer elements to this movie. I think it does a really good job at that. It obviously has studied the Fincher stuff and Manhunter and things like that.
Ooh, that's what this film needs. Is that what the Joker's going to end up being? He's going to be Hannibal Lecter? Hello, Bruce. The man you're looking after. Yes, who can you be looking after? Let's see. I think his name is Freeze.
All right, so we got to give the Batman a rating. What would you give on a scale of 0 to 10 Blade nightclub scenes?
Play Sandstorm. I'll give it a 9 out of 10. I liked it a lot. It's a very good film. I don't know if it's my favorite Batman film. It's hard to beat The Dark Knight and Mask of Phantasm. But it's definitely on the right track. It kind of amazes me how DC and Warner Brothers can't fucking make a good superhero film otherwise, and they have to keep returning to the well of like, let's do Batman, make me even grittier. Which is gonna eventually run its course and be beaten into the ground. But I do think the fact that they go the more like cerebral detective route of like making it, more focused on Batman as a detective, it makes it work. It does borrow a lot from various sources of the comics. I think it does a great job of blending up different stories to make a unique story. It is kind of like a comic book version of Seven, but I still think it's enjoyable. I look forward to seeing what they have to do next. I just hope like they keep up the pace and don't fuck it up. I don't have that much faith in Warner Brothers at this point, though, so they're eventually going to fuck it up. But I like where this is starting. It's 3 hours. It isn't that bad of a watch. It's pretty well paced. The noir horror elements make this a pretty suspenseful, enjoyable watch. And I'll give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10 as well. I was very, very surprised that I was liking this movie so much. I heard a lot of good things about it, but it's hard to really know what to expect when you're going into it. But I think this is really the place that DC needs to be looking into for a true universe for their franchise. If not for the whole DC comic series, then for specifically for the Batman universe. I know that a lot of times they're trying to get out of like doing the very dark and gritty versions of those universes, like and going the way of Marvel, which kind of it can be gritty, but it can also be very kind of like uplifting in some cases or comical. I think that they should really just go this route. Explore the darker side of these superheroes and go along with what they have in store for Batman, especially because I think this does a really good job. It definitely blows the other DC movies out of the water in terms of quality, and it's just a really good foray into the Batman universe. I am surprisingly pleased with Robert Pattinson. I think he does a pretty good job here as Batman. Everything looks good. Costumes and makeup and stuff like that looks really good. I'm very excited to see where they can go with the Batman franchise from here. If they start looking at offshoots and sequels and things like that, because I would definitely follow this franchise of Batman. And I know that DC really wants to take a look at their universe and potentially change things up again. And if they do that, I would hope that they would take into consideration following Matt Reeves, plotting and figuring out where to go from here with the Batman series. Because this is where it's at. This is where they need to focus on. Do the dark and gritty stuff because that's what they're good at, especially with the Batman franchise, and follow it through like that. And with more focus on visceral, real characters instead of like supernatural elements, because it just doesn't work for certain superheroes, and Batman is one of them. Had a lot of fun with it. All right, so that's our episode on the Batman, and I think we've kind of hit the end of what we had planned out for movies that we wanted to cover so far. I don't really have anything specific in mind for the next episode. Do you?
Not that I'm aware of.
I know that we had talked about potentially doing a month of films that we would call difficult movies, which would be a series of movies that are considered in some capacity to be either hard to watch, disturbing.
So we're finally doing a Serbian film?
Affecting. I don't know if we're going to do that one because I don't really consider a Serbian film to be disturbing as much as just ridiculous. But I do have it, so if we did want to do it, we could do it. What I was thinking of actually would be, and I actually had kind of a list, but I think the ones that we would run through would probably be
Lars von Trier films.
Yeah, we could do one of those. I was thinking Antichrist.
Yeah.
I was thinking Michael Haneke's original Funny Games. I was thinking Requiem for a Dream. And I don't know if I had a fourth one in mind. I know we had talked about some of them and which ones we wanted to do previously. Oh, no, the last one was Hereditary. That's right.
Wait, right? I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen Requiem for a Dream, but what the fuck's so hard about Requiem for a Dream?
The subject matter, I think, the ending is very disconcerting.
Maybe I'm thinking of Eternal Sunshine.
Oh, maybe you are. Yeah, it's a completely different type of film. That's true. Yeah. No, so those are the four.
Do Shutter Island.
Those were the four I was thinking of. So I'm thinking that we would probably let's see, what day are we on? What are we on here? Gotta look at my calendar and see what we've got. Because I was thinking that we'd probably take next week off and then start it fresh in the month. But I need to look at the calendar and see when that would fall. So next Friday would be the 29th. So yes, so then we would start it the month of May. And the month of May would be our difficult films month. And then we do 4 films through the month of May. So we would take next week off.
You don't want to do Cannibal Holocaust?
That was another one that we had talked about. Yeah, possibility, but we can talk about that. See what our final picks are going to be.
Oh, I know. Les Miserables.
Yeah, I really want to do Funny Games. That's like one that I really want to have on my list. And you haven't seen Hereditary, so I think that's one to do as well. But the other two can be discussed. So yeah, you'll want to tune in for that difficult films month.
Could you Midsummer?
Well, we're only going to do one. One of his 2 films. So, I would say do Hereditary first.
You know, it's a hard film to get through. Uwe Boll films.
That is true. Those are difficult for different reasons, though.
Dude, Uwe Boll.
Blood Rain.
Oh, there's much worse than that. Are you kidding me?
I think that's really the only other one that I've seen. Blood Rain, and
Have you seen House of the Dead?
I don't think I actually ever
House
watched
of-
it. No. I think I've just seen Blood Rain. That's about it. All right, so you'll want to tune in for our Difficult Films Month. So to do that, make sure that you subscribe to us on pretty much any podcasting app that you can think of. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, our home base at anchor.fm. Pretty much anything we're on. Subscribe to us and leave us a nice review. We're on Facebook and Twitter. Just search for us on there, Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We have a Patreon page where you can donate to us. It's patreon.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We'll put that back towards beer. And also you can write to us at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, what kind of films you want to see us cover, and we'll take that into consideration. So definitely tune in 2 weeks for our start of the Difficult Films Month. And until then...
We're going to need a better fucking title than that.
Why? I like it. It's simple, stated, difficult films.
Yeah, that could mean anything, though.
We'll call it Mayday Month.
Mayday!
Yeah. Send help. I don't know. We'll see if we can find a better title.
Pending approval.
So signing off until next time.
Take care.